Well, hello, boys and girls. This is Mr. Broussard, and of course, we're going to be doing science. It's what we always do together. I hope that you have been having a great week. I have, and we are almost ready for fall break. Isn't that nice? Time has gone by very, very quickly. We have been working very hard. So today's lesson is going to be, actually, all the lessons this week are going to be review lessons of things that we have already done. We're just going to look into them a little bit more in depth, and a little bit. We're just going to learn a little bit more about each one of those things that we've already done. Okay. So today's lesson, I'm sure if you have walked by a TV where the news are on, you know that we've been having a lot of fires in California, right, and all over the West Coast. So this week's lesson is about how organisms react to a forest fire. What must they do? What can they do? What can they do during a forest fire and after the forest fire? So are they good? Is it good for organisms to have a forest fire? Is it bad for an organism to have a forest fire? And at the end of the lesson, after you explore and after you read articles and watch videos and make inferences, we will be able to actually talk about how do forest fires affect organisms, right? So how does a change in our environment affect organisms? But let's take a look at a clear learning target. What exactly are we going to be doing today? So let's take a look at the learning target. I can research, formulate questions, and make inferences to explain what organisms do during and after a forest fire. Okay, so we will be researching, asking questions, and making inferences from all of the things that we read and videos that we watch to see and to be able, not just to see, but to be able to explain what organisms do during a forest fire. Okay, that will be our clear learning target for today. So at the end of the day, if at the end of this lesson, when anybody asks you, you will be able to explain what organisms do during and after a forest fire. And we know that when we say organisms, we're talking about plants, and we're also talking about animals. They are both living organisms. So this is what I'd like you to do, okay? Think about the forests here in Tennessee, okay? Think about the forests in Tennessee, the mountains, if you've been to the mountains, or even if you've just been to the park, okay? That used to be a deciduous forest. Okay, we're gonna concentrate today on what we call temperate deciduous forest, okay? Temperate deciduous forest. So we are gonna concentrate on forests, okay? They are temperate deciduous forests, and these forests are in between the polar region, so they're not in the North Pole, and the tropics, so they're not rainforests either. So they're in between the polar region and the tropics, and these forests have 4 seasons, okay? These forests have 4 seasons. They have spring, summer, autumn or fall, and winter. So we're going to concentrate in those forests. So what I want you to do now is I want you to think of the forests in Tennessee, which are deciduous temperate forests, and I want you to make a list of all the animals that you think live in these forests here. Don't think about the savanna in Africa. Don't think about the rainforest. Think about the forests in Tennessee, temperate deciduous forests. Make a list, and guess what? Also, I would like you to draw some of those animals, okay? Draw some of the animals that live in the temperate deciduous forests. As many as you can. This is not a piece of artwork. This is just so that we can get our brains going about forest fires. But before we do that, let's make a list and draw some of the animals that live in the forests in Tennessee, which are temperate deciduous forests. So pause the video and make your list and draw. So what do you have there? What do you have? So you have deer? You should. Do you have chipmunks? You should. Squirrels? You should. Black bears? Yes. Bobcats? Yes. Salamanders? Those lizards that look a little bit slimy, salamanders? You should. Snakes? Absolutely. Hawks and eagle? Yes, you should too. Do you have all of those? Raccoons? Yes, you should have those. And let's see, what else? Oh, frogs. You should have frogs there as well. And I forgot to tell you, but I also want you to add some pine trees, which we call conifers, because they also live there, and some oak trees, because they also live there. So I especially want you to write pine trees and maybe draw a picture of it, because we are going to be talking about something that happens to those organisms when there is a forest fire. Now it's time to explore. So I would like you to open the document that is titled Deciduous Forest Organisms. Deciduous forest organisms. It looks like this. It has two columns. One says organisms during the forest fire, and the other one says organisms after the forest fire. Okay? And what I like you to do is, I want you to take a few minutes to make some inferences about these organisms during and after a forest fire. So what do you think happens, for example, to the deer during a forest fire and after? So think about what you know about deer. Think about what you know about black bears. Think about what you know about hawks, those birds that like to eat meat. Think about the salamanders, those kind of look like slimy lizards. Think about the bobcats. Think about the pine trees. So what do you think happens during the forest fire while the fire is burning and after to those organisms? So now you can pause the video and take time to fill each one of those columns for each organism. What happens during the forest fire and after the forest fire. Now I want you to click on a YouTube link, okay, of a video that is called What Happens to Animals. What happens to animals? That's the title of that link. Click on that. And I want you to watch that video very carefully, paying attention to what happens to animals during a forest fire and after, okay? So we're trying to confirm our inferences. We're trying to see if our inferences are correct or not. So watch that video very, very carefully, okay? Now I want you to click on a link for a website, okay? The link for the website is called Positive and Negative. Positive and Negative. So click on that, and I want you to go through that website and read what are the positive things, what happens that is positive, that is good from a forest fire, and what are the things that are negative, bad from a forest fire. So click on that and scroll up and down and just read a lot of the things that are there about positive things and negative things about forest fires, okay? So pause this video now, pause the lesson, and go to that website. Positive and negative website. So now that we have watched a video, now that we have read a lot of that website, okay, let's go back to the organizer that we did a few minutes ago, that you guys did a few minutes ago, I didn't do it, about organisms during the forest fire and organisms after the forest fire, okay? So let's go ahead and start with the deer. So scientists know that very few deer die during a forest fire. They are able to run out of the area that is being affected, okay? Black bears do the same, okay? They run out. Maybe one of them is caught in there, but not many, okay? Hogs and eagles are able to fly out of that zone. And in fact, the hogs and the eagles, they love it because as other animals are running out of the forest, they're able to catch them, okay? Salamanders, okay, those kind of wet-looking lizards, salamanders are able to hide under rocks and under some cracks and things like that. Bobcats are able to run out, and they actually love forest fires many times because they're able to catch a lot of animals that are running away from the forest fire. The pine trees get burnt at that time, or apparently they get burnt. And many grasses and brush also get burnt, okay? So those are things that happened during the forest fire. Now, if we go back to how animals, what happens to them after, or I keep saying animals, to organisms, because it's both plants and animals that are affected during a forest fire. What happens to them after? So deer, for example, they usually come back to the area once grasses start growing back. Black bears, the same. Hogs and eagles, they come back to the areas. Salamanders are able to survive, after they come out of under the rocks and crevices and stuff like that. Bobcats usually come back, or they stay at a different area, but they're able to survive. Pine trees, actually, you saw what happens to them, right? It's very helpful. They like forest fires because they're able to open up those cones, right? And they're able to spread their seeds a lot easier, right? And grass and brush grows back up. And do you remember what animals need to survive? That's right, food, air, space, water, and shelter. That's what animals need to be able to live and reproduce. So, are organisms affected by a forest fire? What do you think? Absolutely. How are they affected? How are they affected? Well, some of them have to move. Some of them have extra food. Some of them have not that much food. Some of them move back. Some of them actually have a better ability, like the conifers, to spread their seeds, right? So they are affected. And remember that organisms are always trying to do what? They're trying to survive. They're trying to find food, air, space, water, and shelter, right? So yes, organisms are affected by a forest fire, or in fact, they are affected by any change to the environment. They are affected by any change to the environment, but they will always try to do that one thing, survive, by trying to find food, air, space, water, and shelter. What I would like you to do next is to write a paragraph, okay? Write a paragraph, about 5 or 6 or 7 sentences, explaining how a forest fire affects different organisms. Make sure that you include animals and plants because those are both living organisms. So write a paragraph explaining how a forest fire affects, in positive ways and negative ways, living organisms. So one paragraph, okay? About 6 or 7 sentences explaining that and offering details from that graphic organizer that you have. So one paragraph explaining how forest fires affect living organisms. So let's look at our learning target. I can research, formulate questions, and make inferences to explain what organisms do during and after a forest fire. And that's exactly what we have done. I will see you for our next lesson. And remember, science is everywhere. So I will see you later. Bye-bye. Have an awesome day.